All systems go.
Houston, we have takeoff.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show, and happy pre-Thanksgiving for everyone. We've got a great episode for you today. I brought in a bunch of friends, some experts, and we're going to be talking about really how to stay sober and happy this Thanksgiving, because if you're sober and not happy, that's no fun, but you definitely have to be sober. So I'm going to welcome all of my panelists today. They were so nice to come on and really share their wisdom with us. First, I'd like to welcome in the upper right-hand corner, say hello to Kevin O'Malley. Kevin is a philanthropist and businessman located in Pasadena. Bottom left-hand corner, we've got Evan Jarschauer. He is a therapist and also a master certified addiction professional interventionist. So welcome to the show, Evan. And last but not least, in the right-hand corner, we have Hannah Rose Bernstein, a therapist located in Brentwood, one of my favorite places, Brentwood, California. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So great to see everybody. Look, I have to tell you, your business must be booming, you therapists, because dealing with family and the whole stress of therapy, the whole stress of therapy, the whole stress of Thanksgiving is crazy. I've been sober for decades and I still get a little rattled. Not that I want to go out, but I get a little rattled when Thanksgiving rolls around because it's just a lot. It's a lot of pressure. Hannah, I want to go to you first and to talk about, what do you see during this time, especially with people who are in addiction recovery or trying to get sober with this whole stress of the holidays?
Sure, I'm happy to speak about that. I work as a therapist in private practice. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here in the state of California. Primarily, I specialize in crisis intervention, which means I often see people who are dealing with the fallout of major life events, coping in all kinds of ways, including the development of addictive habits. And even for my clients who've achieved stability long-term, including long-term sobriety, when the holidays roll around and they're back interacting with their family, maybe seeing people they often don't interact with, people who are present for like very stressful, formative early events. I think we're all kind of familiar with how that can trigger old wounds, bring up past issues, and really lead to these regressions into more infantile states. Like, I think we all know what it's like to feel sane, stable, totally on top of things, go back home and immediately become like our teenage self again. So those are some of the things I see with clients during the holidays.
I love you say your teenage self. There does seem to be a little bit of emotional regression when we get around our family. And, that can also lead to triggers. I know, especially for people in early recovery. Kevin, I know you've been sober a long time. I've been sober a long time. It's hard. I remember back the first Thanksgiving or 2 or 3 or 4, dealing with family, especially because my family still drank. They did the drinking and the stuff didn't stop just because I got sober. How do you know if you're in a good place or you're in danger of possibly relapsing?
Well, if you're sober and you're working in an AA program, hopefully you have some advisors inside AA. Hopefully you have gotten a sponsor who's someone that with more time than you that knows how to stay sober and can help you with not only working the 12 steps, but also just how do you live sober. And you rely on other people. You don't necessarily trust your own judgment, because your own judgment, if you're newly sober, it's like, oh my God, I got to be with my family. No, they're counting on me. They rely on me. I hate them, but I got to go. But you don't have to go. One of the really big important things in AA is that you have permission not to jump back in to your family of origin. You have, by joining AA, you have a new family, and it's you have a family of choice, and that's really important that you've chosen this family. I suggest that people stay close to the program, go to extra meetings. We have a lot of things in AA called alkathons, where they're on holidays. We have meetings like every hour, and I suggest finding a sober club that you can hang out at. When you and I got sober in San Francisco back in the 80s and early 90s, there were always big feasts, and they still go on. You can find them almost everywhere. There are people who make it a service commitment to organize big holiday gatherings for Thanksgiving, especially, with lots of turkeys, lots of food. Usually you'll have a meeting at noon, followed by a huge buffet at 1 o'clock. And the one that we used to go to up in San Francisco was 150 people every year. And there was a place called the Dry Dock. That's a sober club right in the Marina District, which is right across the street from 10 bars. And they would have an all day long feast that would go on. And to go to find those places and hang out there, stay. For me, it was like going to the bar. You know, the place on holidays, I used to be at the bar. I'd find the only bar that was open on Christmas, and that would be my home base. And because because you know, the biggest part of my feeling is the biggest part of alcoholism is not the drinking. The drinking, it says in the big book that we have, the drinking is just a symptom of a much larger disease. And for me, the biggest part of that disease is loneliness. And if you look at the 12 steps in AA, they always say we. They are always in the plural form. The first step says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. It doesn't say me or you or I admitted. It says we. And that's the secret of AA. The secret of staying sober on any holiday, but all through the year, stepping out of the me and all the crazy shit in my head and all the voices and stepping into the we. And by doing that, I get relief, and then I get companionship, and I get community, and I'm no longer alone. And that's
absolutely, having that buffer, I think, is good. I know for me, that one meeting that you were talking about, it gave me something that I knew I was going to be at, and other sober people were going to be there too. So it made me check myself when I was not around sober people, because I had something to look forward to. I had a connection, and I had a community. You know, Evan, I need you to jump in here real quick, because as somebody who deals with people who are in crisis with alcohol and drug addiction, you know, there is sometimes when you just can't do the family event, right? You just can't do Thanksgiving as normal. You know, how do you know if maybe that's not for you? It's maybe too dangerous. You might relapse or something, you know, you just feel that something might happen. How do you judge that? How does somebody judge that if it's really okay for them to do business as usual with the holidays?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to just piggyback a little bit off what Kevin said about where the big book gets into that the drinking of the alcohol is a symptom of a far greater issue. And there's no question that the holidays themselves cause a lot of anxiety, the feeling of I'm going to be seeing my family. I'm not in a good place, and I haven't been in a good place for a while. And they may also be able to recognize that I'm not sober or I'm just not well. And so I think that for me, actually going to be part of those efforts, those events, the holidays, that's where my phone starts to ring off the hook as a mental health interventionist or as a behavioral health interventionist, because families are starting to see their loved ones, either they're not coming to the events, so the Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever you celebrate, Hanukkah, or they are coming and they're in really bad shape. And so that's why I think that participating and going, even if you're not in a good place, could really be an excellent thing to do, because in this way, it may be a first step in the people that love you coming together and being able to recognize there's a problem and take some action and get into action.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's better to be, I think you would say this too as a professional and as an interventionist, it's better to be alive and go to the next Thanksgiving than it is to not make it, right? And we know
Absolutely.
alcohol kills so many people, especially, and and I think we underplay it in our society. I have to tell you guys, I love your comments on this. I had heard about this before, and I thought this was just a rumor, but then I found a news clip. I don't know if you know, the night before Thanksgiving, also known as Drinksgiving or Blackout Wednesday, is one of the biggest drinking nights of the year. And I had no idea. And the whole week, really, looking back, is centered around that. People are getting off work. They don't have to go to work on Friday a lot of times. Culturally, alcohol just seems to really be everywhere. How do you pad yourself from that? If you are somebody that's in addiction recovery, and feel free to jump in if you guys have a comment about this.
Well, I'm thinking through the phenomena of that. I'm thinking through, like, why would Wednesday, the night before Thanksgiving, be such a big drinking holiday? And I think a component of that is often people are traveling back to, like, their hometowns. Maybe they're with old friends, old community. I'm just thinking about how often that ends up being a time of, like, reunion for people, often reunion at, like, the hometown bar. And I could see that kind of spiraling into a meme of intentional drunkenness and revelry. And I think that is really dangerous for people with a propensity to addiction, to have an excuse or an acceptable reason to, like, get drunk among other people. But I think people with a history of addiction know it's substantially different for them than it would be for someone else having holiday revelry. It goes to that dangerous place of excess, oblivion, big consequences, public embarrassment, danger, drunk driving. Like, we also see an uptick in death around the holidays, emergency services around the holidays. So I'm thinking back on the question you asked a little bit ago, that question of, like, how do we know? How do we know when something's too dangerous to risk? And I think one good tool for that is the development of emotional intuition, including checking in with the physical body. Is your nervous system showing you, actually, this is scary in a way that's past what I refer to as, like, the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance might be, like, a little bit of extra excitement, a little bit of nervousness. That can be, like, a positive stretch. But if you're getting heart palpitations, if you're feeling like you can't breathe, if there's a feeling of real crisis in the body, it's probably past that window of tolerance and not a safe environment to expose yourself to. And
Evan, how do you...
Sorry,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Hannah. Go ahead.
I would also just encourage people to develop allies. I think it's wonderful when people have a long-term recovery program and a family within something like AA or another recovery community. But for people who don't yet have that, even the simple task of thinking through, like, okay, I'm going to be with my extended family. Who in that group is, like, a mostly safe person for me? Someone who maybe I could share, hey, I'm newly in recovery. This might be hard for me. If I give you a look, can we step outside together? Or if you don't have that within your family, having people you can call and giving yourself that freedom and permission to, like, make a plan in advance and then really genuinely, like, step out when you know that you're beyond that window of tolerance and you're in, like, a danger zone. Because what many people do who haven't developed coping mechanisms is they go to something like alcohol to numb that nervous system sensation they just can't tolerate anymore.
And how do you deal with that, like, Evan, social pressure and family pressure? We just did an episode about some families just not supportive of recovery, and some family works against your recovery. I know I had people in my family who said, you're not an alcoholic, Damon. Just give it a break. Just give it a break. How do you deal with that and the social pressure, Evan, when that's thrust upon you? I know Hannah discussed some of those tips, and I think they're really great. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that whether it's staying mentally stable or maintaining your sobriety, especially in the early stages of that, there's no question that the environment, being in a place where you have people that are supportive of you staying sober or you staying on your mental health regimen, is critical. And it becomes real challenging, extra challenging, when the people that you love with all of your heart, the people that you evolved with emotionally, unfortunately aren't there for you emotionally with regard to being supportive of the steps that you need to take to maintain your mental acuity or your sobriety. And I think for that reason, I love where Hannah was going with that, where it's almost like sometimes you have to create, establish, find, discover a environment, a family, a supportive group, however you want to define it, of people that will be able to embrace you where you're at and help you through that period of time. But I also feel that at the same time, maintaining some level of communication, some connection with those people that are the people that help to raise you, that love you, but just may not get it. I think that's also an important part of the process of working through this period of time. So I think it's definitely a blended understanding of, I got to have that support network. And I think that there's no question that the Fellowship of AA is, so I'm going to stay in a neutral position on that because I'm like an intervention counselor. But there's no question that the Fellowship of AA, and this is a phenomenal, when you're looking at it from a support group, it's phenomenal because you have that built within it. And that's I'm coming from a non-spiritual perspective, just from a structural supportive standpoint through the holidays, phenomenal resource in conjunction with also maintaining some level of communication with the people that you love, but just may not get it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, if you are sober and you are involved in AA, it's really good to have numbers in your phone. It's really good to let people know ahead of time that you're going to be doing this. Ask their advice and support. Texting is great. You know, phone calls, we used to have phone calls, and that would be, we'd have to go to the other room and make a phone call. Now we have texting. You can just go on your phone for about a minute and send a text to someone and say, this is making me fucking crazy. And that person that you text will write back, say, yeah, my family's like that too. And just that little bit of outside connection is like a lifeline. Also, you can have someone call you. One thing that I find is really good is having a prearranged time. Like you're going to your family dinner, but you have a meeting to go to at 5:00. And so if your family is supportive, they'll say, oh, you got a meeting. Great. You know, my mom, when I got sober, my mom loved AA. She loved AA. She'd be very happy that I go to a meeting. She'd make everything work. Even if they won't make it work, you can still do that. You can also, if you want to go to an extreme, you can also invite your family to go to a meeting with you sometime. You know that there are closed AA meetings which are only for alcoholics. There are also open AA meetings that have kind of an invitation for families or professionals to go and understand more about AA. But just to have a release, have an escape chute and have a plan. One other thing too, about if you're with your family and your family, maybe it's your crazy uncle who wants to force a drink on you, always get something that looks like an alcoholic drink. Ginger ale with a squeeze of lime or something, looks like a gin and tonic. Have that drink in your hand so nobody comes up and puts something in your hand and you don't even know it's alcohol and you drink it or you're forced to drink it. Already have a drink in your hand. Have a plan. Pre-planning is really good for this kind of thing.
So great advice, guys. You know, we're going to take a little break here and we're going to come back. When we come back, I want to dive into the real stuff. When it does not go as planned, when all of your plan A, plan B, and plan C falls through the floor, what do you do then? We're going to also take a look at some TikTok videos and react to them. We're going to be back right after this quick break.
Step out of the shadows into the light. Find your tomorrow, start the fight. Recovered Life TV, see the change. Living your best life, it's within reach. Visit recoveredlife.tv today.
You're listening to The Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives.
And we're back. We're talking about how to stay sober and happy this Thanksgiving. We've got just a superstar panel with us today, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for joining us. This has been great. We talked a little bit about physical sobriety, what to do, how to prep. All of that is great, but I don't know about you guys, but I've been in a situation where I've prepped for stuff and it's just like, the floor fell out. It just did not work as planned. It just did not work as planned, right? And I want to show you this little video that I found on TikTok, and I would love your guys. We'll react to this after we take a quick look at it.
I'm 32 days sober, and it is Thanksgiving, and I want to say happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Today has started off pretty rough. Our stove went out. Well, the stovetop works, but the oven went out. We had another stove that was given to us a while back, and the oven doesn't want to get hot. It's just the top part, so we're working with what we have right now. And that thought hit my head. If I just had a drink, I could calm down and actually just enjoy this and just go with it and just whatever. But now that I can't have a drink, I'm like, we gotta have a turkey. We're supposed to be eating by now, and it's gonna be hours before we can eat, and I'm just like freaking out, and that's why I'm making this video right now. I want to calm myself down. I'm going to collect my thoughts. Remember why I'm sober. For my kids, for you guys, for myself. Holding on to this one chip right here. I'm holding on to it with dear life right now because I'm having a hard day. That's why I'm out here and not in the house with the kids.
So, guys, I think we've all been there to one. We've all been there in one way or the other when things don't go as planned. And I love that because it's very real. It's very real about what actually happens in situations in recovery. You get in a place where it's just not, it just things aren't working. Kevin, what do you do when plan A, plan B, plan C just falls through the floor?
Well, you have your Uber app open and ready to go. And you also have made a decision in advance that you have an escape route. You have a place to go. You have a sober club that's open, or you have an alcothon. You have friends that you can call immediately. You have maybe 4 or 5, and they don't have to be sober, but you have 4 or 5 friends that you've alerted in advance. Hey, this could really go wrong, and I need you to be available for me. And they'll say, fine, yeah. And then you go in the bathroom and call them. But also I think the symbolism, I liked hearing that guy. I mean, he reached out and went from the I. We have a saying in AA that we have alcoholism, and you put down the alcohol and you're left with the ism. And the ism stands for I, self, me, being crazy, obsessed about yourself. It also stands for incredibly short memory, and it stands for I sponsor myself. So the alcoholism and drug addiction is all about the I, just the ego. Recovery is about the we. It's always about the we. So you have other people to reach out to. But having that the little magic token that he showed you, I'm going to show you. This is my AA token for 35 years. And what it says this is a quote from the big book. It says, we recoil as if from a hot flame, which means when we get a spiritual connection, alcohol doesn't even touch us anymore. But those kind of things, the symbolism, having the token in your pocket, that you can even just put your hand in and be reminded that you're part of something bigger than yourself. Because that's the heart of AA, is that you have stepped out of just your lonely self and stepped into something bigger than you and gained a power greater than yourself. That's all AA is about, is a power. Doesn't have to be God in the sky or God in the church. It's a power greater than ourselves. And that starts with the we of AA.
Hannah, what Kevin was saying here, still at, over 30 years sober, I still hate powerlessness and manageability. The idea that I'm not going to be in control of my oven, the idea that I can't fix it still bothers me. Now, I've worked on it a lot, but sometimes I've realized in sobriety, when things don't go as planned, to just let go. And maybe that's God doing for me what I can't do for myself, and to just follow with it and just roll with it. What do you do when you have a hard time, releasing that control?
What does a person do if they have a hard time releasing control? That's interesting. Certainly, I work with people who have difficulty with surrender, but I think this applies to everyone, whether you're a member of AA or recovering in some other fashion. Like, there will be circumstances that are out of our control. We are, as everyone's been speaking to, part of a collective. The planet includes other people. We're not in control of everything. So when something happens, like a mechanical failure on a stove on a holiday, you're probably not going to get a repair person in that day. What are alternatives you can come up with? And I actually find that it is in moments of chaos, we have an opportunity to do some meaning making. Like, I think we all know, stories from 2-3 years ago can become these like hilarious moments that we recall with fondness if we get through them like together and with some levity. So if there's an opportunity for that, for like being of service, being part of the solution, I think that's a great thing to step into. And again, back to that idea of like the window of tolerance, if it's beyond your capacity, if you're freaking out in a way that's like not going to be helpful to the group, again, step aside, take some deep breaths, call that ally you've established, just live your life. There will be another day.
I think he's going to remember that Thanksgiving more than any other Thanksgiving, especially if he stays sober. Evan, I know you have a reaction to this video because, intervention, dealing with people at their worst, they think this is it. This is my life forever. It's never going to get better. And that's one of the things with addiction. A lot of times with addiction, we can't see the full picture, especially if we're in the middle of it, especially if we're using, especially we can't see the full picture. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, at the end, it does get better. But with regard to the TikTok video, there's a lot of argument or discussion about how social media causes all kinds of underlying anxiety issues and mental health issues. But one thing that I have seen, and I love that, was that he was using the TikTok video as a means by which to express himself and to really connect with others, and maybe didn't even realize it, but connecting with others that might be going through very similar circumstances. I'd love to read some of the feedback or the comments to his video, but for sure, being able to connect with others and have contingency plans, especially in my work, when I go in to work with somebody that's in crisis that really does believe that this is the end, it's why bother, it's worthless, I'll just keep doing it. I may be sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I'm still not done. And so having contingency plans on how we're going to bring in additional supports, how we're going to work with the family, work with employers, these are critical elements of helping that person in crisis. And I love, once again, the fact that this particular person used social media as a means by which to express himself. And by the way, I don't know if it's a side note or the same note, even in my social media feeds, because I've got multiple social media feeds going on and platforms with my organization, I find myself expressing myself through the videos and the art, that I put in there myself. So I can relate a lot with where he's at. And also I can relate a lot where he's at because almost every single case, something happens and you're sitting there going, wait a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. But if I freak out, then I'm going to be doing a disservice to everybody there. So I've got to continually find contingency plans that work.
Yeah. What I'm getting from this whole episode here is that it really is planning and connections, being connected. And I think the interesting thing is listening to all of you speak with your perspectives. It really isn't necessarily that you're at the Four Seasons having the perfect Thanksgiving, or your oven works, or you're around everybody that agrees with you and supports you. It's really about making an effort to connect and be present in the moment that really makes, and be grateful too. You know, like if you made it to Thanksgiving and you're sober that today, and Thanksgiving is all about gratitude, right? It's all about gratitude. So this whole idea of, you know, really just being in the present and enjoying what you can when you can, and dropping those expectations that things have to be perfect, really seems to be the recipe for a really great Thanksgiving if you're sober. Guys, final thoughts here. A message to anyone. Let's just go round table. Message to anybody who's struggling here, who's thinking, man, I'm not going to make it. You know, I made it this far. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I made it this far, but you're asking a whole lot of me to make it through. Hannah, give me your thoughts on this. What's your final thoughts?
Sure. Well, I love that the theme of this episode is the holidays and also happiness, like living a thriving, recovered life. But I think part of my stance, like one of my stakes in the ground, is there's like validity to all emotional experiences. They all give us richness in life. And sometimes we do have a really hard day or like a dark night of the soul. So even if this is a holiday with a lot of anguish and things that don't feel quite right, just waking up the next day sober is so worth it. And like in the course of a lifetime, one hard holiday is not going to make or break your life. So it's okay even if it's hard, as long as you get through it sober.
Absolutely. Kevin, what's your final thought? Somebody who's maybe struggling.
Well, I would say, hey, look, here's Damon. Damon's sober, I think, 34 years. I'm sober almost 36 years. We wouldn't still be doing this thing, going to meetings, sponsoring people, connecting with people in the program if it didn't work. I can promise you my life, and I tell them my story. My story is very, very dire. You know, my story was being evicted from my apartment, waking up in General Hospital in San Francisco with blood and everywhere, and severe alcohol withdrawal, acute amphetamine psychosis. I tell people that story when they're new. I said, that was my life now. Now I have a beautiful wife that I've been with for 33 years, successful business, but I'm happy and I'm connected and I still go to meetings. So hang in there now, because I promise you, all of us have been where you are now. All of us with lots of time, what we call long timers now. We used to be old timers, but now we're too young to be old timers. So long timers, we wouldn't still be here, but we've all been through what you're going through right now, and we got through it. And as Hannah said, we've learned from it and we've applied it to our emotional palette of how we're going to deal with things later. One of the keys of AA is the pain and suffering that we experience now. We can then use that later on to help someone else. So that's the literal alchemy of AA, is transforming pain and suffering into a healing modality, that we're a healing elixir that we can pass on to someone else and cure them, and then have them pass it on and heal somebody else.
Absolutely. Evan, saving you for the last. We know you got some great advice here. Somebody who's struggling, what do they do? Are they going to make it through?
Oh, they are going to make it through. At least under my watch or our watch, they will, right? Right. But I think that, you know, and hearing everyone speak and the theme, you know, it does get better, and don't give up. And there's no question that we're all impacted, affected by the people that we love and that we know love us. And, you know, maybe part of the reason why you may not want to go or be part of Thanksgiving is because you may feel as though you're not understood. Maybe you don't feel like you're not loved, but you are. But things may have happened that may have caused some people that love you to have some additional concerns about you and how they're affected by you. So I think the number one thing to do is to just recognize that at the end of the day, if you continue to work your program, whatever that program is, you will make it through. You just have to dedicate yourself. You have to commit yourself to making it through. And I'm going to use kind of a simple term, making it through today. And if you make it through today, then guess what? You can make it through tomorrow as well, and the next day.
Absolutely. Wow, guys, this has been just amazing. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And everyone, I am going to put links on how you can get a hold of Evan, Hannah, and Kevin. At the very end of this, I just want to say to everybody, hold on, reach out. If you think you're in trouble, before you pick up, reach out. And if you've happened to pick up, still reach out, because you definitely can get this. I'm a living testimony that this can happen. And that's why we do the Recovered Life Show. And if you're sober and unhappy, that's primarily why we did the Recovered Life Show, because we want you to live your best recovered life, because that's what it's about. We didn't get sober to be miserable. We want to be healthy, and we want to be happy. So guys, I'd like to thank you so much. Links in the description of all the social channels, guys, of where you can touch base with Evan, Hannah, and Kevin. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Recovered Life Show today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Damon.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources, we're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.